because I think there could be some really great information that comes out of this. But I basically put this blab together because I've been challenged lately with a couple of the nonprofits that I work with in finding the best ways to utilize what sometimes is limited content because of the nature of the nonprofit, which in and of itself becomes a challenge. There's one nonprofit that I work with that deals with people who are suffering from a terminal illness, and we're recording video legacies for them.
Okay.
And so the challenge becomes, how do we utilize that content that we're recording without invading someone's privacy? And the answer is you can't, without invading someone's privacy. So what we do is in addition to recording these video legacies, we also always record a testimonial with them that's separate from the video legacy that we're recording,
right,
so that we can at least use something from the client, at least talking about the experience and why they decided to do it, and things like that. But the most impactful content that we record is obviously, private, and we promise not to share it. So it becomes a real challenge. Whereas if people really saw the valuable content that we're recording, it would certainly move them to support us, or to spread the word about the organization. So in a situation like that, it's very sensitive material, and you really can't, exploit that material for the gain of the organization, because then it becomes counterproductive, because then people won't want to do it, because you're sharing this content with the public that you promise not to share. So it presents a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, the one I'm working with is somewhat similar in that they help primarily cancer, but terminally ill adults who have children create a lasting memory. So they help with trips to Disney and cruises and things like that. So somewhat similar. And they do share the stories. Now, they haven't given me any video content yet, but
Mm-hmm.
they have shared testimonials and stories and pictures.
Mm-hmm. So is this kind of like Make-A-Wish in a sense?
It's like the reverse of Make-A-Wish. So instead of the child, it's a parent.
It's a parent.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, that's interesting. There's definitely synergy there for sure,
yes,
because our criteria for someone recording a free video legacy with us is that they have children under the age of 21.
Okay.
So that, and then they're diagnosed with a stage 3, stage 4, terminal illness.
Right.
And then they qualify. So that, that's probably similar in a sense to what the organization you work with in terms of criteria. Do they have a similar
Yep. I
cutoff
don't
like
know
that?
the exact criteria, but from what I've seen, everybody seems to be stage 3, stage 4.
Yeah. And then with young kids.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the exact demographic. And, it's, it's heart-wrenching,
Oh, yeah.
this type of thing. We did a recording this morning, and since the organization has gotten a lot of national exposure, we do a lot of the video recording via Skype now.
Okay.
So I recorded just this morning with a woman. I guess she was maybe in her late 30s, and with a 5-month-old.
Wow.
And a 2-year-old. And, it's, the only way that they'll know their mother is through something like this. I mean, obviously, she, a 5-month-old or even a 2-year-old, has very real little recollection of
Yeah.
what they experienced at that age. It's all through shared memories, pictures and video and things like that. So it's it's tough. It's really it's difficult. So it's always a challenge. And she of course recorded a testimonial as to why she did this and why she feels it's important and why people should do it. So that's very valuable to us to have. But certainly the material that she recorded in those couple of hours prior to that was very moving.
Yeah.
But you really can't share it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. Because that is more personal. It's directed at the children.
Right.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, and even though we have we have a video release from them to use it, we don't. We just won't do that. We do share it with the therapists who do the interview portion.
Mm-hmm.
We share it with them as a way to train them so that they can see what these things look like and all of that. But we would never, that would never go on social media or on the website or anything like that, So, but for internal, training purposes for our interviewers and things like that, we certainly have utilized that material. And we'll continue to do so. And there really hasn't been anyone that we've worked with that have asked us not to.
Okay.
Because of then, of course, we would, adhere to that. Privacy is kind of our number one concern. So.
Right. Understandably.
Yeah. Now, is that the organization that you did the grants,
Yes.
Google grants for?
Yes.
So yeah, you'll be.
I mean, I'm trying to put my own nonprofit together. It's been a little slow go. It's definitely, they don't make it easy for sure, but mine is a little less. Well, I'll just tell you what it is. It's so what I'm trying to do is create a foundation that helps disadvantaged kids acquire resources to be able to play in organized sports. So
Mhm.
I'm a coach too. I coach baseball. And my son plays baseball. My oldest played softball for, I don't know, probably 15 years. And I love it. But I see that there are kids that can't play because either they can't afford the equipment or they can't afford the league fees,
Right.
Things like that. And I think it's really important for kids to get involved in sports at a young age because it helps them build their character, their
Mhm.
leadership skills and team skills, team building. So I'm trying to start that. It's been slow go, but I also, I try to help where I can, and so I help this. It's called Treasured Time. I help them out. I've rebuilt their site, and I set up their Google Grants today. And like I said, I did it this morning. It's the actual grant is already done.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the ad part that's pending. And a couple other things I've helped them with. I've tried to help out a few others, but I don't know if they're just concerned that they're going to be taken advantage of or what it is, but a lot of them are a little slow to accept the help for some reason. I was working with another one for a little while that they, whenever a large corporation upgrades their computers, they take the computers, refurbish them, and give them to kids families that can't afford them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was helping them out for a little while. But they've since changed leadership. So,
do you think that maybe it's they think that there's some kind of catch involved that how could they just be getting this free money from Google? Like what do I have to spend money to get they could just think it's more of a a scam or
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, because why would a nonprofit turn down that offer?
And it could be that they're questioning the legitimacy of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, it's Google. So can Google afford $10,000 a month? Yeah, no problem. That's a drop in the bucket for them. But
Oh yeah, especially in in Google ads. I mean, it's just,
Right. So they're just paying themselves. They don't, you
yeah,
know,
there's no real, cost per se,
right.
for them to do that,
Right.
um, so yeah, no, it'd be interesting. I'm definitely planning on looking into that, but you're right. There have been times where it's hard to convince them to take money. A good example for me was I had worked with a nonprofit for about 5 years that was in the first responder, widows, and children's space.
Okay.
And eBay um, has what they used to call Giving Works,
Okay.
where you can register your nonprofit, and then when you do a transaction on eBay, you could either earmark a portion of the proceeds of your auction item to benefit the charity of your choice, um, or people can add a donation at the end of their transaction, okay, and donate to the charity of their choice, and the approved charity can then list items on eBay for sale where 100% of the proceeds could benefit the charity. It goes directly, and then there's no fees involved. Like eBay doesn't charge any fee. All of that is gone. So there was one month I remember that the charity, I don't know, someone must have, we were trying to track down what had happened,
Hmm.
but they had like $30,000 in donations in one month. And so someone must have shared it, and then people, I don't think it was for listing of items, but must have, done a donation at checkout or something. But it was just this enormous amount of money for one month.
Right.
And then it went away, and then it went back to the same, $800 or $900 a month or whatever it was that it was generating. But we couldn't quite figure it out. But I've since left that
Okay.
position, so I don't know if they're still utilizing it or not. But it's a great, I think eBay still does that.
Yeah.
They still have that. I think they call it something else now. Um,
Yeah. GoDaddy does something similar.
yeah, yeah. So it's worth exploring the different options. But again, if you have a client that's resistant to taking that help, that in and of itself becomes a challenge. And sometimes you're just not going to make any headway
Right.
with that. So um,
But for me, it's just about helping out. So if I'm helping someone, that works for me.
yeah, and most nonprofits struggle with having enough money to stay operational, and a lot of it has to do with people not being aware of their existence.
Hmm.
Because no matter what the economic times, people are always going to give, and it's just a matter of them being aware of what you do and your
Right.
mission. And if they are, then there's a chance a portion of that will come your way. But I think that um, I think that the days of the big corporate checks being written are over, and I think looking at the $10 and $20 donations in a much larger amount is really what the future is for a lot of these charities, because these big corporations are just not doling out the dollars the way they used to. But in turn, the companies that can offer in-kind services either for free or at a substantial discount, then like this Google Grants thing, um, you just have to find them so that you can take advantage of them.
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't know if there's a central location where all of these opportunities are listed. But it's,
Good idea,
it would
actually.
be a good resource to
Yeah,
compile
yeah,
to
that's
let
an
people
excellent idea.
know that, hey, something like this exists, because if they're not aware of it, then they can't take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
There's, I know in Connecticut, I'm in Connecticut. There is an organization that nonprofits go to. And I don't know if I think there's a fee to join, and I've been told they only accept like upper higher tier nonprofits, but
Mhm.
they have a lot of resources available on their website. The name is escaping me at the moment, but so I'd imagine pretty much every state has something similar. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's a good idea to have a centralized location where you can say, "Hey, Google has this grant program, and maybe
Right.
Bing does it too, or maybe Yahoo has something, maybe Facebook does
Yeah,
something."
and even if trying to think the last time we did it, but there's a lot of services. So let's say, I think Constant Contact is one of them. They have a separate rate and package for nonprofits.
Okay.
So I always, when I'm signing someone up, and then they are a nonprofit for a particular service, I always look and see if they have some sort of educational discount or nonprofit discount of some sort, and quite often they're fairly substantial. As much as 50 to 70% off on some things. I know there was some software we purchased for a past client that it was a $500 piece of software that I think they paid about $79 for because they were a nonprofit. So there's always I always look for some sort of offer for a nonprofit if I'm signing up for a new service or something like that.
I think Microsoft might have something like that. I'm not sure, but for their Office program, I think they might have
Mhm.
something. Um,
Yeah, they probably do. And I just found out actually, and now I remember what it was. Uh, Salesforce. I don't know
oh,
if you're familiar with
yeah.
Salesforce, but they have a nonprofit program where I think it's something like you get a 10 user package and at no cost to the nonprofit. And in most cases, 10 accounts can more than cover most nonprofits, because not everyone is going to need access to that anyway. But that's a huge savings because that's thousands of dollars
Yeah.
to have to pay each month for a 10 user package. So that was when I haven't signed anybody up for it yet because they don't need something that robust. But
Yeah.
I know that it's there for the next client that comes along that can take advantage of that. So, but there's always new things that are coming along in that regard. So, um,
I mean, I think that the companies like Salesforce and Microsoft and Google, they have to feel some sense of um, obligation is probably not the best word, but responsibility that they have to give back. You know,
well, sure. When you have, companies that have such
exactly.
wealth, to not do that, is just going to reflect poorly. But as I don't like to be cynical because I do like to think that they truly want to help people by doing that. And I'm sure that's their major motivation. But I would have to imagine that there's probably some kind of tax advantage
Oh,
to doing that, and whatever money they're giving away becomes a write-off of some kind that they're doing. So I guess they're benefiting, and they're in turn helping others. But I'm sure it's not all philanthropic in motivation there.
yeah.
But that's just kind of where my mind sometimes travels. So, but all right. Well, I'm glad we could share some of these things, and there's always new resources coming along. But I think this is the type of conversation that probably has to happen a little bit more frequently in the nonprofit space, so that we can all help each other discover some new resources, and that have fairly significant value to them. I think that's really what the biggest benefit is.
I like your idea though of putting some type of centralized database together. Um, I think it would be helpful to, especially the smaller nonprofits that don't necessarily have the resources of, the Make a
Right.
Wish and things like that.
Right.
Um,
Or even the team in place that could do the research, for that,
right.
because it's
Oh yeah,
just,
good point.
yeah. So, yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Maybe if I can scrounge up some free time,
Yeah.
I can undertake that. All right. Well, I'm following you, and it's been good. It's been good talking. Glad we could exchange some ideas, and hope to run into you again on Blab down the line.
All right, Robert. Yeah, I think I've
Okay.
run into you once or twice, but
Yeah.
thanks for having me on. It's good
Yeah.
to talk about these things. It needs to be talked about.
Absolutely. Okay. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Robert.